First Contact's Aftermath. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the holographic display floating above her desk at the Quantum Research Institute. The message it contained had already been viewed over 10 million times across Earth's networks in the past hour. She couldn't blame people's fascination. It wasn't every day that humanity received its first official contact from the Interstellar Assembly. Your recent achievement of quantum tunneling technology has been noted. The message read, its translation perfect yet somehow condescending. The Assembly extends an invitation for Earth to present itself for evaluation and potential provisional membership. Sarah ran her fingers through her graying hair, the same hair that had turned prematurely white during the breakthrough experiments 6 months ago. The quantum tunneling drive had been her life's work, a way to fold space-time that made traditional faster-than-light travel look primitive by comparison. They'd succeeded decades before anyone thought possible, and now, Dr. Chen. Her eye assistant's voice interrupted her thoughts. The Security Council is requesting your presence at the emergency session. When? Now. They're waiting. Sarah grabbed her tablet and hurried to the Institute's conference room. The large screen on the wall showed faces from around the world. Political leaders, military commanders, and her fellow scientists. At the center was Security Council Chair Marcus Rodriguez, his expression grim. Dr. Chen, thank you for joining us, Rodriguez began. I assume you've seen the message. What we haven't shared publicly is the second part that came with it. A new hologram appeared, showing technical specifications that made Sarah's blood run cold. The Assembly's invitation came with a requirement. Earth must demonstrate its quantum tunneling technology at their headquarters. The specifications described a test that seemed deliberately designed to push their technology beyond its limits. They're setting us up to fail, Admiral Wong said bluntly. These parameters, they're asking for a tunneling field 5 times larger than anything we've achieved. Sarah studied the numbers, her mind already racing through calculations. It's worse than that, she said. Look at the power requirements. They're not just testing our technology. They're testing our fundamental understanding of quantum mechanics. Can we do it? Rodriguez asked. Sarah was about to say no when something caught her eye in the specifications, a subtle flaw in the Assembly's assumptions about how quantum fields behaved. She'd seen something similar during their early experiments, before they'd discovered that human consciousness itself played a role in stabilizing quantum states, a factor the aliens seemed to have missed entirely. Yes, she said slowly, but not the way they expect us to. We'll need to think differently. Different how? Rodriguez leaned forward. The Assembly's approach to quantum mechanics is rigid. They've mastered the mathematics but missed something essential about the nature of reality itself. Something we stumbled upon by accident. Sarah pulled up her own research data. When we were developing the drive, we discovered that human consciousness affects quantum fields in ways we still don't fully understand. It's why our drive works with a fraction of the power their calculations say it should need. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth wasn't just being tested. They had an opportunity to demonstrate that humanity's approach to science might have something to teach the Assembly. How long would you need? Rodriguez asked. 3 months, Sarah replied. We'll need to modify the drive significantly, and I'll need a team of quantum-sensitive individuals, people who can naturally perceive and influence quantum states. Admiral Wong frowned. The Assembly gave us 2 months. Then we'll do it in 2, Sarah said firmly. But I need full access to all quantum-sensitive individuals we've identified, and complete authority to modify the drive without going through normal safety protocols. Rodriguez looked around the virtual room. One by one, the leaders nodded. Granted, he said, but Dr. Chen, be careful. I suspect the Assembly won't react well if we succeed. Sarah smiled grimly. That's exactly what I'm counting on. They invited us to play their game, but they don't realize we're playing by different rules entirely. Rules they don't even know exist. As the meeting ended, Sarah began composing messages to her potential team members. They had 2 months to prove that humanity's primitive understanding of quantum mechanics could reshape the assembly's view of the universe itself. It wasn't just about passing their test anymore. It was about showing the galaxy that human intuition and creativity could unlock secrets that pure logic had missed for millennia. The real question was, were the assembly's members ready to have their fundamental assumptions about reality challenged by the species they'd dismissed as barely worthy of attention? Sarah had a feeling they were about to find out, and the answer would shake the foundations of galactic society. The challenge. The Assembly's headquarters orbited a binary star system, a massive structure of crystalline spires and impossible geometries that seemed to defy physics itself. As Earth's delegation approached in their quantum-modified vessel, Dr. Sarah Chen couldn't help but notice how their ship's sleek, practical design contrasted with the ornate alien vessels surrounding them. "They're scanning us," Lieutenant Maria Torres announced from the pilot's seat. "Multiple frequencies. They seem particularly interested in our drive signature." Sarah nodded, watching the streams of data on her console. The assembly scans were sophisticated, but they were looking in all the wrong places. They searched for massive power signatures and complex field geometries, unable to detect the subtle quantum resonances that actually powered their drive. "Let them look," she said. "They won't understand what they're seeing." Their ship, the Quantum Leap, docked with perfect precision at their assigned bay. As the delegation prepared to disembark, Sarah gathered her team of quantum sensitives. 6 individuals chosen not for their scientific credentials, but for their unique ability to perceive and influence quantum states. Dr. James Martinez, a theoretical physicist who could visualize quantum probability clouds. Maya Patel, a meditation instructor who could instinctively stabilize quantum fields. 4 others, each bringing their own particular talent to the mix. The Assembly's reception committee waited at the airlock, a diverse group of alien species that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. The leader, a tall being of shifting crystalline formations, stepped forward. "I am High Administrator Vex Thor," it announced, its translation device creating perfect English. "We welcome Earth's representatives." The pause before the last word carried volumes of condescension. Sarah stepped forward. "High Administrator, I am Dr. Sarah Chen, lead scientist of Earth's quantum tunneling program. We appreciate the Assembly's invitation to demonstrate our technology." "Yes, your interesting approach to quantum mechanics." Vex Thor's crystalline form shifted in what might have been amusement. "The Assembly has reviewed your preliminary data. Your power utilization curves defy known physical laws. We look forward to understanding how you've managed to produce such creative results." The implication was clear. They thought Earth was either lying about their achievements or had somehow stumbled upon something they didn't truly understand. Sarah maintained her professional smile, even as she felt Maya tense beside her. The delegation was led through towering corridors to the Assembly's main chamber. Thousands of alien representatives filled the tiered seating, their attention focused on the human group. At the chamber center, a massive testing facility had been constructed, exactly matching the specifications they'd been sent. "Your challenge," Vex Thor announced to the chamber, "is to create a stable quantum tunneling field capable of transporting this facility's mass across a distance of 50 light-years, maintaining coherence for no less than 60 seconds. The crystalline being turned to Sarah. "Our most advanced species require massive energy arrays and complex field generators to achieve such a feat. We are curious to see how your primitive technology will approach the problem." Sarah stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Before we begin, I have a question about your test parameters." She projected a hologram of her own, showing the quantum equations the Assembly had provided. "Your calculations assume a linear relationship between consciousness and quantum field stability." "Why?" A murmur ran through the chamber. Vex Thor's crystalline form flickered in what might have been confusion. "Consciousness has no bearing on quantum mechanics. This is elementary physics." "Perhaps for you," Sarah replied. She nodded to her team, who spread out around the testing facility. "We'd like to demonstrate an alternative approach." The assembly chamber erupted in discussions as Sarah's team took their positions. No massive energy arrays, no complex field generators, just 6 humans standing in a circle around the facility. Sarah could feel the dismissive amusement from the gathered species. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology, but their ability to see beyond established limitations. "If you're ready," Vexthor said, making no attempt to hide their skepticism, "you may begin your attempt." Sarah closed her eyes, reaching out with her quantum sense to her team members. She could feel them doing the same. James visualizing the probability fields, Maya stabilizing the quantum foam, the others each contributing their unique perspective to the whole. Together, they began to weave something that the assembly's rigid understanding of physics insisted was impossible. The air around the testing facility began to shimmer, not with the harsh energies the assembly expected, but with subtle distortions that seemed to bend reality itself. Instruments throughout the chamber began registering impossible readings as human consciousness reshaped quantum reality in ways the assembly's science had never imagined. "Impossible," Vexthor whispered, their crystalline form vibrating with shock. "Your power output is barely registering, yet the quantum field is stable," Sarah finished, opening her eyes to observe their work. "And ready for transport." She smiled at the stunned assembly. "Shall we proceed with the demonstration?" The real test, Sarah knew, wasn't about moving mass across space. It was about moving minds across possibilities, showing the assembly that their certainty about the universe's laws might not be as absolute as they believed. As the quantum field grew stronger, she could feel the first cracks appearing in the assembly's worldview. And she knew that after today, nothing in galactic society would ever be quite the same. Hidden strengths. The assembly chamber had fallen into a stunned silence as the quantum field around the testing facility pulsed with an impossible elegance. Dr. Sarah Chen and her team maintained their positions, their shared consciousness weaving reality itself into new patterns that defied the assembly's understanding of physics. Initial field coherence at 100%, James Martinez announced, his eyes closed as he visualized the quantum probability clouds surrounding them. No power fluctuations, no instability. Vexthor's crystalline form had lost its earlier condescension, now vibrating with frequencies that suggested deep disturbance. The High Administrator moved through the scanning equipment, examining readings that shouldn't have been possible. "These energy signatures," Vexthor said, their translation device struggling to maintain its usual smooth tones. "They're orders of magnitude below minimum theoretical requirements. You cannot be generating a stable quantum field." Maya Patil opened her eyes briefly, a small smile playing on her lips. "Yet here we are." She returned to her meditative state, her consciousness helping to maintain the delicate quantum balance. Sarah stepped forward, maintaining her connection to the field while addressing the assembly. "What you're witnessing isn't just technology. It's the result of understanding that consciousness itself is a fundamental force in quantum mechanics. Your equations aren't wrong. They're just incomplete." A new figure approached the testing area, a being of pure energy contained within a sophisticated environmental suit. Sarah recognized the species from their briefings. The Xynthi, among the oldest members of the assembly, and their leading experts in quantum physics. "Impossible," the Xynthi scientist declared, their energy form flickering rapidly. "We have studied quantum mechanics for 50,000 years. Consciousness is merely an emergent property of complex systems. It cannot directly influence quantum states." Sarah gestured to the stable field around them. "Then how do you explain this? Our power output is less than 1% of what your equations demand, yet the field is more stable than anything your traditional methods can achieve." The Xynthi moved closer, their sophisticated sensors probing the quantum field. "There is something, a pattern we have never seen before, but it cannot be consciousness, perhaps some unknown particle interaction." "Let us show you," Sarah offered. She nodded to her team. Everyone, Prepare for transport. The assembly chamber erupted in protests. Vex Thor stepped forward urgently. You cannot attempt quantum transport with these power levels. The field will collapse instantly. The testing facility will be destroyed. Along with everyone within 50 meters, the Xynthi added. This is madness. Sarah maintained her calm demeanor. If we fail, the only lives at risk are our own. We accept the consequences of our demonstration. She turned to her team. Are we ready? One by one, they nodded. Sarah could feel their consciousness synchronizing, their combined quantum awareness creating patterns that the assembly's instruments could barely detect. The air around the testing facility began to ripple like heat waves on a summer day. Transport initiating in 10 seconds, Sarah announced. She could feel the assembly's collective tension, their certainty that they were about to witness a catastrophic failure. 9, 8. The Xynthi's energy form pulsed rapidly as they examined their readings. The field coherence, it's increasing. But how? 3, 2, 1. Reality bent. There was no other way to describe it. The testing facility didn't disappear in a flash of energy or fade away gradually. Instead, space itself seemed to fold around it like paper, creating geometries that shouldn't have been possible. For a brief moment, every quantum sensitive in the room could feel the connection. A tunnel through space-time maintained not by brute force technology, but by the delicate interaction of human consciousness with the quantum fabric of reality. 50 light-years away, at the designated coordinates, observers watched in amazement as the testing facility appeared with perfect precision. Not a single atom out of place. Not a single fluctuation in the quantum field. Back in the assembly chamber, Sarah opened her eyes to see the empty space where the facility had been. A space that, according to the assembly's understanding of physics, should have been filled with the scattered atoms of a catastrophic quantum failure. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives from hundreds of species began talking at once, their translation devices creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. The Xynthi scientist had gone completely still, their energy form dimmed in what might have been shock. Vex Thor approached Sarah, their crystalline form shifting through patterns she couldn't interpret. How? The High Administrator asked simply. How is this possible? Sarah looked at her team, each of them tired but proud. They had done more than pass a test. They had shattered the Assembly's fundamental understanding of the universe. Perhaps, she suggested gently, it's time for us to have a real discussion about the nature of consciousness, reality, and humanity's place in the galaxy. The quantum field they had generated was still visible to those who knew how to look, its elegant patterns a testament to what was possible when human intuition and creativity were combined with scientific understanding. It hung in the air like a challenge to the Assembly's assumptions, a reminder that the universe held more mysteries than their rigid science could explain. And this, Sarah knew, was just the beginning. The demonstration's impact. In the days following humanity's quantum tunneling demonstration, the Assembly's headquarters became a hive of frenzied activity. Species that hadn't spoken to each other in centuries were now engaged in intense discussions. The massive library archives, containing millions of years of scientific knowledge, were being re-examined through a new lens. Dr. Sarah Chen found herself in the center of it all, moving from one meeting to another as species after species sought to understand what they had witnessed. The Assembly's grand conference room, usually reserved for formal ceremonies, had been transformed into an impromptu research center. Your species experiences quantum fields as sensations, a meridian scientist asked, their bioluminescent tentacles pulsing with curiosity. Their race had spent millennia developing sophisticated quantum technology, yet they'd never considered consciousness as a factor. Not exactly, Sarah explained, watching as Maya demonstrated her quantum sensing abilities. It's more like intuition, an awareness of possibilities that exist just beyond normal perception. The Xynthi scientist who had witnessed the original demonstration floated nearby, their energy form now showing patterns that Sarah had learned to recognize as intense interest. We have detected similar phenomena in our studies, they admitted. Quantum fluctuations that didn't match our equations. We dismissed them as experimental errors because they only occurred when conscious observers were present, Sarah suggested. The Xinthi's form flickered in what might have been embarrassment. Yes, we never considered. We thought we understood the fundamental laws of reality. James Martinez looked up from where he was working with a group of younger aliens, teaching them to visualize quantum probability clouds. Maybe that's the real difference, he said. Humans never assumed we understood everything. We're comfortable with mystery, with possibilities beyond our current understanding. Sarah watched as a young crystalline, barely a century old, managed to perceive quantum fluctuations for the first time. The being's entire form lit up with excitement, sending rainbow patterns across the chamber walls. Other species were showing similar breakthroughs, each in their own unique way. But not everyone was celebrating. Sarah noticed a group of assembly traditionalists, led by several elder races, gathering in corners and speaking in hushed tones. Their concern was understandable. Humanity hadn't just challenged their physics, they'd challenged the very hierarchy of galactic civilization. High Administrator Vexthor approached Sarah, their crystalline form shifting through complex patterns. The Assembly Council wishes to speak with you, they announced. Privately. Sarah followed Vexthor to a smaller chamber, where the Council's most influential members waited. The room hummed with tension and unstated implications. Dr. Chen, the eldest Xinthi, began, their energy form carefully controlled. What you have shown us is unprecedented. It raises certain concerns. Concerns? Sarah kept her voice neutral. Your species has been spacefaring for less than a century, a Meridian elder added. Yet you've discovered principles that we, with all our combined knowledge, overlooked. This creates complications. The Assembly has maintained stability through controlled advancement of knowledge, Vexthor explained. Species progress at a predictable rate, following established paths of development. Your approach is disruptive. Sarah considered her response carefully. This was the real challenge. Not proving humanity's capabilities, but finding a way to integrate them into galactic society without causing chaos. Change doesn't have to be destructive, she said finally. Look at what's happening right now. Species that never collaborated are sharing insights. Young minds are discovering abilities they never knew they had. Isn't this exactly what the Assembly was created for? And what of the species who aren't ready for such advancement? Another elder demanded. What of the careful balance we've maintained? With respect, Sarah replied. Who decides who's ready? The same beings who dismissed consciousness as irrelevant to quantum mechanics, who assumed they understood all the fundamental laws of reality. The chamber fell silent. Sarah continued, her voice firm, but not confrontational. Humanity doesn't want to disrupt your civilization. We want to contribute to it. But contribution means genuine exchange, not just younger species learning from older ones, but all species learning from each other. A new voice spoke up, a young crystalline who had been observing silently until now. She's right. I've learned more about quantum mechanics in the past day than in the past decade of traditional study. Imagine what we could achieve if we combined human intuition with our technological expertise. The council members exchanged looks. Sarah could sense the shift in the room, not complete acceptance, but the beginning of understanding. The Assembly hadn't survived for millions of years by being inflexible, even if change sometimes came slowly. We will need time to consider the implications, the Xinthi elder finally said. But perhaps there is wisdom in what you say. As Sarah left the council chamber, she passed more groups of mixed species working together, learning to sense and manipulate quantum fields in new ways. The Assembly headquarters, once a symbol of rigid hierarchy and controlled progress, was becoming something else, a place of discovery and collaboration. The real challenge was just beginning. Integrating humanity's insights without destabilizing galactic society would require careful balance. But as Sarah watched a young Meridian successfully generate their first consciousness-guided quantum field, she knew they were on the right path. The universe, it seemed, had more to teach all of them. New Horizons. 6 months after humanity's quantum demonstration, the Assembly headquarters had transformed beyond recognition. The once rigid hierarchy of species had given way to something new, collaborative research teams that crossed traditional boundaries of age and advancement. At the center of this transformation stood the new Quantum Consciousness Institute, where Dr. Sarah Chen watched as the future of galactic civilization took shape. The Meridian-human quantum link is stable, Maya reported from her station, where she was supervising the first successful joint consciousness-guided quantum field generated by 2 different species. The Meridian's tentacles glowed with achievement as they maintained their part of the field. Record that frequency pattern, Sarah instructed. Each species seems to interact with quantum fields differently. Understanding these variations could be the key to something bigger. James Martinez entered the laboratory, accompanied by a young crystalline researcher. "You need to see this," he said, excitement clear in his voice. "The Xinthi just confirmed our theory about quantum resonance patterns in conscious minds. It explains why some species are naturally more quantum sensitive than others." The discovery was another piece in a puzzle that grew more fascinating with each passing day. The Assembly's vast archives were being re-examined, revealing countless instances where consciousness had influenced quantum experiments, data that had been dismissed as anomalous for millennia. But not everyone had embraced the changes. A movement of traditionalists, calling themselves the purists, had emerged among the elder races. They argued that unrestricted sharing of knowledge would lead to chaos, that younger species needed guidance rather than partnership. High Administrator Vexthor, who had become an unexpected ally, entered the Institute. Their crystalline form had changed over the months, adopting patterns that reflected their evolving understanding of reality. "The Council is ready," they announced. "They're prepared to vote on the Consciousness Integration Protocol." Sarah nodded, knowing this moment would define the future of human-assembly relations. The protocol would formally recognize consciousness as a fundamental force in the universe, equal to gravity or electromagnetism. More importantly, it would reshape how the Assembly approached the development of younger species. In the Grand Council chamber, representatives from every known spacefaring species gathered. The traditional tiered seating had been replaced with a circular arrangement, symbolizing the new spirit of equality. Sarah took her place among the human delegation, noting how different the atmosphere felt from her first arrival. The Xinthi elder who had once dismissed consciousness as irrelevant now floated at the center of the chamber. "We face a choice," they began, their energy form pulsing with formal patterns. "For millions of years, the Assembly has guided the development of younger species along carefully controlled paths. We believe this brought stability. We believe we understood the fundamental laws of reality." The elder's form brightened. "We were wrong. The humans have shown us that true understanding comes not from control, but from collaboration. Not from assuming we know all answers, but from remaining open to new questions." The purist faction stirred uneasily, but they were now a minority. Too many species had experienced the benefits of the new approach, had felt the excitement of discovering abilities they never knew they possessed. "The Consciousness Integration Protocol," the elder continued, "will formalize what we have learned. All species, regardless of age or technological advancement, have something to teach and something to learn. The Assembly will no longer be a hierarchy of instructors and students, but a true community of equals." The vote that followed was not unanimous, but it was decisive. As the results were announced, Sarah felt a wave of emotion sweep through the chamber, not just from the humans present, but from every species capable of sensing quantum fields. It was a moment of shared consciousness that transcended traditional boundaries. Later, in the Institute's observation dome, Sarah stood with her team watching the binary stars set. Maya was teaching a group of young aliens meditation techniques that enhanced quantum sensitivity. James was deep in discussion with Xinthi scientists about the mathematical patterns they'd discovered in conscious quantum interactions. "Did you ever imagine this?" Vex Thor asked, joining her at the window. "When you first received our message?" Sarah smiled, remembering the condescension in that initial contact. "We knew we had something to offer," she said. "But this is beyond what any of us dreamed possible." Below them, in the Institute's main hall, representatives from dozens of species were preparing for the first Galactic Conference on Conscious Quantum Mechanics. The old boundaries between advanced and primitive species had blurred. Everyone had something to contribute, some unique perspective on the quantum nature of reality. "The purists aren't entirely wrong, you know," Vex Thor observed. "Change brings risk. Not every species will handle these discoveries responsibly." "True," Sarah agreed. "But that's why we need each other. The Assembly's experience and wisdom, combined with the fresh perspectives of younger species. We're stronger together than apart." A alert chimed softly. Another breakthrough in one of the research labs. A team of quantum sensitives from 5 different species had managed to generate a completely new type of quantum field. The universe, it seemed, had endless mysteries to reveal. "There's something else," Vex Thor said. "The long-range scouts have detected quantum field patterns at the galaxy's edge. Natural patterns, but incredibly complex. Some believe they might be evidence of consciousness on a cosmic scale." Sarah felt a familiar thrill of discovery. "Then we'd better start preparing for another first contact," she said. "One where we all approach as equals, ready to learn." The binary star's light painted the dome in shifting colors, a reminder of how much beauty there was still to discover in the universe. Humanity had come to the Assembly expecting to prove themselves worthy of membership. Instead, they had helped forge something new. A civilization where worth wasn't measured by age or advancement, but by the willingness to learn, to share, and to grow together. The stars beckoned, full of mysteries waiting to be explored by minds both ancient and young, working together in ways that once seemed impossible. It was, Sarah reflected, just the beginning.